Welcome to Millennium Daytime Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Starmer announces coalition of the willing to guarantee Ukraine peace. Israel blocks entry of all humanitarian aid to Gaza. Private spacecraft Blue Ghost lands on Moon. Multiple wildfire in North and South Carolina force evacuations. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan seeks global help for democracy, regional stability. Pope Francis didn't need mechanical ventilation on Sunday after respiratory crisis, Vatican says. United States intel shows Russia and China are attempting to recruit disgruntled federal employees. US market surge amid global gains, volatility index drops. India beat New Zealand to face Australia in semi-finals. Steph Curry dunks for the first time in 6 years, says it will be the last of his career. Now let's look at the details. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced the 4-point plan to work with the Ukraine to end the war and defend the country from Russia. The UK, France and other countries will step up their efforts in a coalition of the willing and seek to involve the United States in their support for Ukraine, he said. We are at a crossroad in history today, Starmer said after the summit of 18 leaders, mostly from Europe and including the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who said Ukraine felt strong support and the summit showed European unity at an extremely high level not seen for a long time. It comes 2 days after a fiery exchange between the Ukrainian leader and the US President Donald Trump in the White House. We are all working together in Europe to find the order and cooperation with the America for a true peace and guaranteed security, Zelensky said after the summit. Speaking at a news conference shortly after the meeting of leaders, Starmer said 4 points had been agreed. That is, 1, to keep military aid flowing into Ukraine and to keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia, that any lasting peace must ensure Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and Ukraine must be present at any peace talks. In the event of a peace deal, to boost Ukraine's defensive capabilities, to deter any future invasion, to develop aviation in the willing that to defend and the deal in the Ukraine and to guarantee peace afterwards. Sir Keir also announced an additional 1.6 billion of UK export finance to buy more 5,000 air defense missiles. This comes on the top of 2.2 billion loan to provide more military aid to Ukraine backed by profits from the frozen Russian assets. We have to learn from the mistakes of the past. We cannot accept a weak deal which Russia can breach with ease. Instead, any deal must be backed by strength, he said. The Prime Minister did not state which country had agreed to join the coalition of the willing, but said that those who had committed would intensify planning with real urgency. The UK had said that it would back its commitment with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Israel has blocked the entry of all humanitarian aid into Gaza as it demands Hamas agree to a US plan for a ceasefire extension. In the first phase of a truce deal mediated by the Egypt, Qatar and the United States expired on Saturday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said Hamas was refusing to accept a temporary extension proposed by the Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff. A Hamas spokesperson said blocking supplies to Gaza was cheap blackmail and a coup on the ceasefire agreement and urged mediators to intervene. The ceasefire deal halted 15 months of the fighting between Hamas and the Israeli military, allowing the release of 33 Israeli hostages for about 1,900 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. The internationally mediated ceasefire plan, originally proposed by the Joe Biden, envisages 3 stages. The first phase came into effect on the 19th of January and expired on Saturday. Negotiation on phase 2 meant to lead a prominent ceasefire and a permanent ceasefire that also the releases of the remaining living hostages and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza were due to have started weeks ago, but have largely not begun. Also, the phase 3 is meant to result in the return of all remaining bodies of dead hostages and the reconstruction of Gaza, which is expected to take years. Hamas has previously said it will not agree to any extension of phase 1 without guarantees from the mediators that phase 2 would eventually take place. As the first phase of the deal expired on Saturday, Netanyahu's office said Israel had agreed to Witkoff's proposal for the ceasefire to continue for about 6 weeks during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and Jewish Passover periods. If at any end of the period negotiation reached a dead end, then Israel would reserve the right to go back to the war. Also, Witkoff has not made his proposal public. According to Israel, it would begin to release half of all the remaining living and dead hostages. Witkoff is said by the Israel to have proposed a temporary extension after becoming convinced that more time was needed to try to bridge the difference between Israel and Hamas on condition for ending the war. A statement from the Netanyahu's office said, with the end of phase 1 of the hostages deal and in light of the Hamas refusal to accept the Witkoff's outline for continuing talk to which Israel agreed, Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided that off on the morning all the entry of the goods and supplies into the Gaza Strip will cease. Israel will not allow a ceasefire without the release of our hostages. If Hamas continue its refusal, there will be further consequences. We'll have to see how the issues unfold in a couple of more days and weeks. Private spacecraft has landed on the moon, becoming only the second commercial vehicle to reach the lunar surface. Blue Ghost left Earth on January 15 after being launched by the US firm Firefly Aerospace with the intention of exploring the Sea of Crisis, a huge crater visible from Earth. The project is the latest collaboration by the US space agency NASA and private companies Intuitive Machines. Another firm is hoping to land its Athena spacecraft near the moon's south pole in the next few days. Intuitive was the first private company to achieve a lunar landing. Its spacecraft Odyssey reached the moon on the 22nd of February last year. However, the mission was short-lived as the spacecraft landed on the slope of a crater, broke some landing gear and toppled over. Blue Ghost touched down smoothly, having been orbiting the moon for the last 2 weeks. Staff at the Firefly's headquarters in Texas broke into the cheering and applauding when they were told that their landing was successful. Dr. Simon Barber, a planetary science researcher from the Open University, said Blue Ghost was essentially the first successful private venture of the moon as the vehicle was intact and responsive. He told BBC Breakfast they have demonstrated a technology for landing on the surface of the moon, the kind they have been forgotten after the Apollo era when he had the astronauts on the lunar surface. The importance of the moon to many private firms, said Dr. Barber, was to use it as a launch pad for exploring the rest of space. By going to the moon, we can also learn how to run robotic instruments in space and in reality and the harsh environment of the moon, which is at times hot and at times cold. It's very dusty. There's was a lot of radiation. He said at some point it was likely humans would return to the lunar surface, and explained it had become so long because of a lacking funding. Also, the last time humans set foot on the moon was 19th December 1972 during the Apollo 17 mission. The Apollo mission was hugely successful, explained Dr. Barber, but they were touch and go mission. Back then the astronauts were there for the 3 days, having to leave again as the costs were running into the billions of dollars. That's not sustainable, he said. Emergency unfolded amid warning throughout southeast over dry and windy condition that exacerbates the wildfires. Fire officials on Sunday were battling to contain the blazes ravaging the South and the North Carolina, which have forced evacuation in some areas. The emergency unfolded amid warning throughout the southeast over dry and windy condition that exacerbate the wildfire. In North Carolina, the National Forest Service said fire crews were working to contain multiple wildfire burning on more than 400 acres in 4 forests across the state on Sunday. The largest, about 300 acres, that is 162 hectares, was an Unhory National Forest about in the 50-mile, that is the 80-kilometer range east of the Charlotte. Also, the Polk County, North Carolina officials set up an emergency shelter as a brush fire encompassing 400 to 500 acres swept an area between the communities of Tyrone and Saluda, about the 40 miles south of the Asheville South. And the social media platform that the Saluda Fire Department said that a downed power line on the US Highway 176 caused a brush fire that rapidly spread up into the mountains, threatening multiple structures. Tyrone and Saluda's fire department both led efforts to fight the blaze, and with the personnel from the North Carolina Forest Service as well as Polk, Henderson, Rutherford, Buncombe and the Spartanburg counties providing assistance, the Post said. The fire had zero containment as of Saturday night. In South Carolina, a brush fire was reported just west of the Myrtle Beach in the Carolina Forest. Horry County Rescue Fire reported ongoing evacuation due to the fire on early Sunday morning. The South Carolina Forestry Commission estimated Sunday afternoon that the blaze was burning about 1.9 square miles, that is 4.9 square kilometer, with 0% containment. No structure had succumbed to the blaze and no injuries have been reported as of Sunday morning, officials said. Our first responders and firefighters are risking their lives to contain many fires across the South Carolina tonight, McMaster said. Pakistan jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan has appealed to the international community, particularly the United States, to reaffirm its commitment to democracy, human rights and regional stability. Dawn reported that in an article published in the Time magazine in his name, the incarcerated politician congratulated the United States President Donald Trump on his political comeback, and he also expressed hope that the United States would work with Pakistan to foster economic partnerships to promote stability and prevent conditions that lead to conflict and extremism. Also, it remains unclear if the article was indeed penned by the Imran Khan and how it was delivered to the magazine. Khan reflected on the political turmoil in Pakistan and his ongoing fight for democracy. He expressed deep concern over the alleged erosion of democracy in the country, describing the current period as one of the most challenging in the nation's history. He underscored that his imprisonment and charges brought against him were politically motivated attempts to stifle his advocacy for the also democratic principles. He claimed his struggle was not personal but addressed the broader issue of democracy, which had far-reaching consequences not only for the country but also for the regional and global stability. Given Pakistan's strategic importance, Khan emphasized that the international community must recognize the urgency of addressing the crisis. On the issue of terrorism, Khan criticized the government for diverting the resources from crucial and counter-terrorism efforts to ensure and pursue a political vendetta against Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf, that is PTI. PTI. Also, regions such as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, which have seen an uptick in the terrorist activities, were neglected in favor of the military campaign against political opponents. The judiciary, Khan alleged, had been reduced to a tool of political persecution. Speaking on the Dawn News TV show Dusra Rukh on Saturday, Senate Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs Chairman, that is Irfan Siddiqui, said PTI was impossible to predict. The party was suggesting alliances which simultaneously calling for civil disobedience, sending letters and publishing explosive articles in the Time magazine, the PMLN senator said. While discussing the talk with the PTI, Senator Siddiqui said it was impossible to present options during the talks as they did not assess them at any forum. Rather, their decisions came straight from Khan. He said PTI did not know what they were doing until they received instruction from Prime Minister Imran Khan. Pope Francis remained in stable condition and didn't need any mechanical ventilation on Sunday, March 2nd, the Vatican said. It was a sign that his respiratory function was improving as he continues his recovery from the double pneumonia and a respiratory crisis. The 88-year-old Pope did continue to receive high-flow supplemental oxygen after Friday, that is February 28, coughing episode, which sparked fear of a new infection. Also, doctor again said his prognosis remained guarded, meaning he wasn't out of danger. Pope Francis, who earlier on Sunday, that is March 2nd, had a visit from the Vatican number 2 and number 3 officials, also attended Mass, rested and prayed, the Vatican said in the evening bulletin. Pope Francis continued his recovery from the double pneumonia, which again skipped his weekly noon blessing to avoid even a brief public appearance from the hospital. Instead, the Vatican distributed a message from the Pope in which he thanked his doctors for the care and well-wishers for their prayers and prayed again for peace in Ukraine and elsewhere. From here, war appears even more absurd, Pope Francis said in the message which he drafted in recent days from the Gemelli Hospital, the Vatican said. Pope Francis said he was living his hospitalization as an experience of profound solidarity with people who are sick and suffering elsewhere. I feel in my heart the blessing that is hidden within the frailty, because it is the precisely in this moment when we learn even more to trust in the Lord, Pope Francis said in the text. At the same time, I thank God for giving me the opportunity to share in body and spirit the condition of so many sick and suffering people. It marked the third weekend in a row that Pope Francis has cancelled the Sunday appointment delivering the Angelus prayer in person. He could have done so from his 10th floor hospital suite at the Gemelli Hospital if he were well enough. Also, but many signs indicated that he was improving, especially after the respiratory crisis on Sunday, that is the February of 28 afternoon, that resulted in his inhaling vomit during a coughing fit and raising the possibility of a new infection. The night was quiet. The Pope is still resting, the Vatican said in its Sunday, March 2 update. Pope Francis was up, read the Sunday paper and had coffee and breakfast while continuing with his therapy. Cardinal also, that is Pietro Parolin for now, and his chief of staff, Archbishop Edgar Penapara, also called on the Pope on Sunday morning, their second visit since Pope Francis' February 14 hospitalization, according to the Vatican spokesperson Bruni. There were no details of what was discussed, but there were mere visits suggested Pope Francis' condition was stabilizing. The Pope, who had part of one lung removed as a young man, has lung disease and was admitted to Gemelli on February 14 after a bout of bronchitis worsened and turned into a complex pneumonia in both lungs. Pope Francis' hospitalization has come as the Vatican is marking its Holy Year, drawing pilgrims to Rome from all over the world. Many of them added a pilgrimage destination to their itineraries so they can pray for Pope Francis at the Gemelli Hospital, which is around a 20-minute drive from the Vatican City, longer in a rush hour or on public transport. transport. The fact that Pope Francis was able to use just high flow oxygen for a long period without any significant effect on the level of oxygen in his blood was a sign that his respiratory function was improving. We'll see the updates and see how the health of the Pope goes in the next coming days. Foreign adversaries including Russia and China have recently directed their intelligence services to ramp up recruiting of the US federal employees working in the national security, targeting those who have been fired. All feel they could be soon, according to the 4 people familiar with the recent US intelligence on the issue and a document reviewed by CNN. The intelligence indicate that the foreign adversaries are eager to exploit the Trump's administration efforts to conduct mass layoff across the federal workforce, a plan that is laid out by the Office of the Personnel Management earlier this week. Russia and China are focusing their efforts on recently fired employees with security clearances and probationary employees at risk of being terminated who may have valuable information about the United States critical infrastructure and vital government bureaucracy, 2 of the sources said. At least 2 countries have already set up recruitment websites and begun aggressively targeting federal employees on LinkedIn, 2 of the sources said. A document produced by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service said the intelligence community assessed that with the high confidence that the foreign adversaries were trying to recruit federal employees and capitalize on Trump's administration's plan for mass layoff, according to the partially redacted copy renewed by the CNN. It added that the foreign intelligence officers were being directed to look for potential sources on LinkedIn, TikTok, RedNote, and Reddit. At least 1 foreign intelligence officer directed an asset to create a company profile on LinkedIn and post a job advertisement and to actively pursue federal employees which indicate they are open to work, the NCIS document says. The adversaries think the employees are at their most vulnerable right now, another of the sources said, out of a job, bitter about being fired, etc. It does not take a lot of imagination to see that these cast aside federal workers with a wealth of institutional knowledge represent staggeringly attractive targets to the intelligence services of our competitor and adversaries, a third source of the familiar to the Millennium and CNN said in their report. Now bringing you latest updates on today's market trends. The global market painted a positive picture today with the United States indices leading the charge. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed by 317.24 points, that is 0.71% increase, closing at 44,873.28, driven by gains across technology and financial sectors. The S&P 500 rose 0.39% to 6,061, while the Nasdaq added 38.31 points, reflecting continued confidence in the tech stocks. Also, meanwhile, the VIX and the volatility index dropped by 8.37%, indicating reduced market uncertainty and growing investor optimism. The Russell 2000, representing the small cap stock, surged 1.14%, signaling a broader market rally beyond the large cap giants. North of the border, Canada's S&P TSX Composite Index jumped 1.15%, while the S&P TSX 60 followed closely with the 1.10 gain, and the South America's Brazil's Bovespa Index rose 0.31%, buoyed by the strong performance in the energy and financial sectors. Also, however, not all regions shared the same upbeat momentum. Mexico's S&P BMV IPC Index slipped by 0.62%, suggesting localized challenges in its equity markets. As we move into the afternoon session, global investors remain cautiously optimistic. The US markets are poised to continue their upward movement with a close eye on the upcoming economic data releases that could also solidify this rally or trigger a connection. In the ETF space today, movers reflected a mixed bag of trends, with the tech-focused funds seeing the requisite, that being the significant action taken The Rexian Daily Semiconductor Bull 3x share soared 5.52% to reach $27.70, driven by strong performance in the semiconductor sector amid the renewed optimism around the artificial intelligence and chip demand. This marks a notable rebound as semiconductors continue to show resilience. On the downside, the Direxion Daily Tesla Bull 2x share TSLL dropped sharply by 7.09%, closing at $23.20. This decline reflects investor caution in the Tesla's short-term performance, possibly influenced by recent production data or broader EV market concerns. The Direxion Daily S&P 500 Bear 3x share slipped the 1.03%, indicating a bullish sentiment in the broader markets as fewer investors seek bearish exposure to the S&P 500. Inversely, the T-Rex 2x Inverse Nvidia Daily Target ETF took a hit, falling 10.59% to reach $3.25 as Nvidia stock continued to gain strength, catching inverse ETF holders off guard. The rounding out session, that is iShare 20 plus years Treasury bond, rose 1.65%, signaling renewed interest in the long-term bonds as investor hedge against the potentially volatility in the equities market. We'll be right back after a short break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi. Keep watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome back after the break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin. Now let's look at the sports highlights. Spinner Varun Chakravarti returned figures of 5 on 42 as India beat New Zealand by 44 runs to set up a semi-final clash with Australia in cricket's Champion Trophy. India won all 3 of their group matches to top Group A and will play the first semi-final of the 50-over tournament in Dubai on Tuesday. The match in the rerun of the 2023 Cricket World Cup final, which the Australians won in Ahmedabad. New Zealand will take on Group B winner South Africa in Lahore on Wednesday. India are playing all their matches at the Dubai International Stadium after they refused to tour parts of the Pakistan due to the security reasons. Also, Australia and South Africa had to travel to Dubai from Pakistan despite not knowing if they would be playing there, as India were told ahead of the tournament they would play the first semi-final if they qualified, no matter where they finished in the group. South Africa will now have to fly back to Pakistan ahead of their meeting with the New Zealand. Iyer and Patel, who made 42, put on 98 for the 4th wicket to rebuild the innings against a disciplined New Zealand attack. With just over 7 minutes left in the Golden State Warriors clash against the Philadelphia's 76ers on Saturday, Steph Curry produced something rarely seen in his long glittering career as he dunked for the first time in 6 years and perhaps for the last time too. That will probably be my last dunk, Curry told reporters afterward. I am calling it right now. That was the last one you're going to see. Curry led the way for the Warriors with 29 points and 13 assists, but in the absence of Jimmy Butler and the team that fell to 119-126 defeat against the 76ers on Saturday, snapping their 5 games win streak. Though he holds the NBA 3 points record, Curry dunk are much rarer occurrence. A reel showing all of the dunks run to just 6 minutes on the YouTube that also remembers everything about the last one of the 6 years ago. 6 years ago at home, right wing, the right corner a little bit of the cut. I think that it would pass from the KD, he said. I was at the Oracle. I never dunked at Chase the center. How about that? I've been feeling pretty good. I've been doing some knee stuff all year, and you want to take advantage of a cherry pick opportunity, Curry added. It took everything out of me to get up there after this dunk. As the crowd celebrated, seeing such a rare sight, Curry turned and pointed towards the bench, towards the Warrior assist coach Jerry Stackhouse. He later said, ironically, this morning at Shooter Run, Stackhouse said he wanted to see a dunk, Curry said. He hadn't said that all year, and I haven't heard that in years, and it happened tonight, which is a kind of funny. Also, it was a very random comment this morning. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Millennium News 24. You can watch us on Android and iOS devices, as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download the Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA for Android, and Millennium News on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News Channel 24.